And welcome back to the program, folks. Eyes on Texas channel, your source of breaking horns news with video highlights. I'm going to be, of course, your host, AK, and I'm back here with another video with you today. This is going to be a recruiting style video in the class of 2023 wide receiver big board. And before you can know where you're going, you have to know where you came from. And Texas in the class of 2022 was 5th overall in the nation and in the Big 12, 1st overall over there. With that being said, moving on from the class of 2022 commits into the class of 2023 offers page, where you can see that the Texas Longhorns have offered 159 athletes. And of those athletes, 11 of them are going to be running backs. But in this video specifically, we are looking at the wide receivers, and you can see that we have offered 20 wide receivers in this class, ranging all the way from the number 1 wide receiver, 5-star, recognized Brennan Marion from Lauderdale, Florida, all the way down to lonely, not really known at all, Chase Hendricks with 0 stars next to his name, as he's going to be St. Mary's from St. Mary's, Missouri, 5'11" prospect himself. And before we go deep diving into the class of 2023 prospect big board for the University of Texas Longhorns, I would just like to remind you that I'm AK. This is the Eyes on Texas channel, where I'm your source of breaking horns news and video highlights, reminding you to please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and tell your friends all about me. And now we get into the big board wide receiver prospect list for the University of Texas. Hook 'em up. And as you can see, for recruiting site and information, I go to 247 Sports, as in my opinion, they are number 1 in the industry. And on this class of 2023 big board list, we are going to be focusing on 6 players that are showing the most interest in Texas, and thus Texas is focusing on them for their signature come next summer. With that being said, let's dive into it. Texas already has 1 hard commitment in the class of 2023 on the 40, and it's going to be wide receiver Ryan Niblet. He's going to be from Adeline Eisenhower from Houston, Texas, nationally rated 105 prospect. You can see that he committed to the Texas Longhorns on March 23rd of this year. Very excited to have him into the fold. So of the 6 that we are going to be talking about, of course, we are going to be talking about the hard commit for the Texas Longhorns. But this is the only commit, the first commit that we have on the offensive side of the ball for the wide receiver position. So who are the other 5 on this list showing future interest in the Texas Longhorns is going to be Jalen Hale, probably the highest rated recruit that shows the most interest in Texas, has the most interest in as well. Has been viewed upon as being a lean to the University of Oklahoma Sooners, but recent interest by the Texas Longhorns has made the big board in the class of 2023. I'm going to have some more information on all these prospects later. I'm going to have some highlight videos. I just do want to get the list of the prospect big board on the class first. But Jalen Hale, very talented wide receiver, 6'2", 175 pounds, from Beast, Texas, out of Longview. Next coming up is no stranger to the program and no stranger to the 40 himself, going to be Jonte Cook II. Made big head waves on the 7-on-7 circuit, made big head waves on the gridiron on Friday Night Lights, and has been to the 40 acres several times himself. As you can see, much production in the class of 2023, 38 receptions, but 19 receptions for touchdowns on that list. Going to be an explosive player at the collegiate level. Going to look to have an explosive year for his high school. Going to play for DeSoto U in the DFW area. A very talented wide receiver group, known day in and day out, coming out of DeSoto, and also very talented group of players coming out of DeSoto, as they are known as DeSoto U. But coming from the DFW all the way down to Houston, Texas, probably one of my favorite recruits in the class of 2023, and making the big board list in this is going to be Jaquez Pettaway 5'11", 170 pounds. Like I said, I'm going to have some highlights on these for you guys. Going to have some more information in here for you later on in the video. I just really want to notify the first commit and the 5 guys that Texas does have on the board itself. And he is going to be a borderline fringe 4 or 5-star player, as he is 247 Sports has him as a nationally rated 34 overall prospect. 4th best rated wide receiver and 4th best rated player in Texas. Jaquez Pettaway, coming from the Houston area, very explosive player at 5'11", 170 pounds. Let's see if we get some track times for you. Yes, triple jump, his best broad jump there is going to be 43 feet. And in the 100, you can see that explosive time there, and doubling it up in the 221.72. Going to be a track athlete as well on the gridiron. Looking forward to his recruitment and seeing if we can land him later on in the recruiting process. Jaden Greathouse from Austin Westlake has been crystal ball to the Texas Longhorns for quite some time now. Now Steve Wilfong, as you can see there, as I can circle in the crystal ball predictions right here for you guys. Steve Wilfong and Mike Roach kind of sort of have their opinions there. The new lean, where the new excitement is going, it has been trending toward the Fighting Irish of Notre Dame. But with that being said, the Texas Longhorns are not going to give up on this prospect, as he is a unique prospect. That is, his height and weight ratio is going to be 6'2", 206 pounds. So this is a player who's a little bit too big for corners and safeties and a little bit too fast for those linebackers. So he is going to be a bit of a mismatch nightmare on the gridiron for secondaries and for linebackers. 4-star prospect all the way, nationally rated 111th. 19th best rated wide receiver, athlete, however you want to call him. And in the great state of Texas, he is the 21st greatest player according to the composite there. But Jaden Greathouse, fantastic recruit, fantastic prospect, absolutely exploded in the Texas title game there for you, which really did explode his commitment there. And Jonah Wilson, going to be another Houston area product, going to be another Houston area prospect here on the list for you. He is going to be another flyer himself. 6'3", big-bodied wide receiver, 195 pounds, nationally rated 257, and as a wide receiver, number 34 overall. Other college showing interest, of course, going to be Arkansas, Baylor, Houston, and Kansas, going for the Houston area product. With that being said, he does also run track in the 200 and 400 meters, and he is going to be explosive offer there for it as well. As you can see the offer sheet, you can see the stats here for him. 34 receptions, 469 yards this past season for 8 reception TDs. But Jonah Wilson, make no about it, is going to be a primetime player, primetime prospect, and hopefully someone at the University of Texas can get him in on the 40. First, we have the lone commit at the wide receiver position, Ryan Niblet from Houston, Texas. He plays his high school ball down there at Ike, which is going to be a 6A classification, the largest classification in the great state of Texas, where he's a 4-star nationally rated prospect, 105 and 15th greatest wide receiver at the position. Moving on his profile here, he is a track athlete with verified times in the 100 at 10.58, and he doubles it up in the 200 at 22.14 seconds. And showing off that athleticism, he has triple jumps 45 feet and 8.5 inches. And I did say at his 6A all-purpose player of the year as a junior down there in the Houston area. I see first Ryan fitting into Sark's offense first as a slot where he can utilize his speed and quickness in a phone booth, then get stronger, learn the position, then play on the outside where he can use that top end speed to take the top off of defenses. The first non-committed athlete and someone who needs no introduction to this big board or recruiting sites and services anywhere, Jalen Hale out of Beast, Texas, where the water is just different and the wind blows in circles. Jalen, nationally recognized as the 40 best prospect in the class of 2023, has bursted onto the scene ever since he was a freshman, where in the first time in 15 years, a varsity athlete was playing as a freshman. Jalen Hale, absolute fantastic player. Where will he line up on the 40? Where will he line up? Anywhere he wants. Probably on the outside, using that big body, the strength, the athleticism, and that catch radius to get open and body up smaller and less athletic cornerbacks. Diving into Jalen's athletic backgrounds and other accolades, where he participates as a three-sport athlete in football, basketball, and track and field, where his best time in the 200 as a sophomore was 22.68 seconds in the 200. He long jumped for his best jump of 21 feet. He's going to be a first-team All-District, of course, as a junior. And as I did state earlier, in 2019, played varsity ball down there in Longview, the first athlete to play varsity ball as a freshman in 15 years. And of all the great studs and athletes they've had coming out in Beast, Texas, that is very impressive. On the gridiron, his stats include in 2021, 50 receptions for 1,154 yards and 14 massive touchdowns. Jonte Cook II, 100% alpha. Not much to say here. Absolute baller of a wide receiver. I've actually seen this man play in person, in live and living color, where he is an absolute stud, an absolute playmaker, and man, when he gets his hands on the ball, he scores. That's what he does. He had 38 receptions this past year. You might think that's a low number, and it is. He had lots of other wide receivers on his team that are going to be Division I prospects and D1 stars, but he's more of a wide receiver who makes the big plays down the field and he scores touchdowns. Let's talk about those stats where he did have just 38 receptions for 19 massive touchdowns, so that's exactly a 50% chance of whenever he touches the ball, he is gonna score. He racked up 806 yards playing for DeSoto U down there in Dallas, where if you don't know anything about this prospect, you have not been following recruiting period, where on the Texas Longhorns big board, he has been on there for quite some time, has been on the 40 more times than I can possibly count. An absolute must hit and a must get for the Texas Longhorns at the wide receiver position in the class of 2023. The player coming up next who needs no introduction at all, this player, three-time state champion, back-to-back in the great state of Texas in the class of 6A Division II from Austin Westlake Hills, Jaden Greathouse, where this nationally rated four-star prospect is the 18th best wide receiver in all. But all in all fairness, is he a wide receiver? Is he a tight end? Or is he some sort of in-between playmaker? I like him lining up in the slot. I like him in a three-point stance coming off the line as a tight end, and you can can body him up against the smaller cornerbacks and play him split out wide. With that being said, he is not a true blazer. He is not going to have that 100 time. He is not going to run the 4.40 like we like to see from the playmakers in Coach Sark's offense. But what he is a playmaker and making plays since his freshman year for the Austin Westlake, as I did say, as he is a 3-time state champion, and he holds the championship records for reception yards in a state championship game, where last year he played up against Denton Guyer, and the Denton Guyer defense bolstered 4 defensive backs that are all going to be Division I players and Division I prospects themselves. Jaden Greathouse in that championship game had 7 receptions, a championship game record 236 yards, and scored 3 touchdowns for the former Max Prep All-American. Jaden's varsity performance and stats is no joke. His freshman year in 2019, he hauled in 47 receptions for 715 yards and 10 scores. Followed up his sophomore campaign with 69 receptions, totaling 1,145 yards, and grabbed 13 touchdowns. And this season, as a junior, including in the state championship game, hauled in 66 receptions for 1,274 yards and 20 big reception touchdowns. With that being said, that's going to put him as a varsity total through 3 seasons at 43 touchdowns. Jaden Greathouse has the potential of scoring 70 varsity touchdowns at the 6A level in Texas high school football. Jaquez Pettaway. Woo! This blazer coming out of the Houston area in Langdon Creek is going to be my number 1 wide receiver on the big board, although Jonte Cook II is probably number 1 on the board by the Texas Longhorn. Jaquez Pettaway is going to be my number 1 guy, and he's going to be my number 1 guy for 2 reasons. Reason number 1 is he is a D-O-double-G dog. He will fight for and claw for every single inch that he can get on the outside and the inside. He uses his blazing speed to get by defenders and on his way to touchdowns. And that blazing speed is going to be the second reason for my liking of this player. Already posting sub 100 meter times this season, 10.41, 10.43, and 10.47 in the 100, showing that blazing speed in the 200 as well, with a personal record 20.80 seconds. He is an absolute flyer on the track, and he shows his athleticism as well with a triple jump with a personal best 43 flat. Jaquez Pettaway uses his speeds on the inside and on the outside, and that is going to be my number 1 reason for why he's going to be number 1 on my big board. Coming out of the Houston area, this native scores touchdowns early and often and is set up for an explosive and high productive senior season for the Lobos. Jonah Wilson is going to be the last recruit to make my big board for the class of 2023 for the wide receiver position for the Texas Longhorns. This big-bodied 6'3", 195-pound standout from the Houston area is a nationally recognized 4-star, 258 overall by 247 Sports, and is probably going to be the only or the second take that the Texas Longhorns have as far as a big-bodied wide receiver or playmaker for this class in the class of 2023. The other being the other wide receiver slash tight end in Jaden Greathouse, who is going to be another performer that's going to make these kind of sort of plays for a big-bodied standout wide receiver. But Jonah Wilson is going to be coming from Duquesne High School, like I did say, in the class of 2023. Jonah is known for using that 6'3" frame with 195 pounds to limp up for 50-50 balls, is a predator in the red zone, and is known to body up smaller defenders trying to come through him to make plays. That's the big board for the class of 2023 for the Texas Longhorns at the wide receiver position. You agree with it? Don't agree with it? Got your own big board? Write your comments down below in this video, and please subscribe to this channel for future notifications about college football, Texas high school football in general. Keep your head to swivel, your eyes on Texas, hook 'em up.